I guess it was some odd time where I saw a BMW brochure on the M3, and I remember a Daytona Violet E36 in the centerfold of that brochure cresting a hill. I'm like, man, that car looks good. So, you know, I kind of grew up in the time of where the E36 was the car to have, and E30s was the more affordable version of that. So that's kind of how I got into it. Just around friends that were always messing with them. So amongst that association, just started playing with the cars, and little by little, you know, it started building on what I've learned throughout the years.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Automotive Anatomy. Today we have Ryan. Ryan, thank you so much for making the time for us. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited about this E30 and then the surprising then in your beautiful shop. So tell us, what do you drive?
This is a 1989 BMW 325 IS E30, and it is basically a track horse. You know, it's something to really feel analog in, and really get you to feel what I consider to be the true spirit of driving. So no aids, everything manual, you know, just you in the car.
So how did you get introduced to the true spirit of driving?
I don't know. I guess I've never really been asked that, because my father owned the body shop, but he had a body shop before I was born. So outside of that, he never really tinkered with cars. So it was just, I guess it was some odd time where I saw a BMW brochure on the M3, and I remember a Daytona Violet E36 in the centerfold of that brochure cresting a hill. I'm like, man, that car looks good. So, you know, I kind of grew up in the time of where the E36 was the car to have, and E30s was the more affordable version of that. So that's kind of how I got into it. Just around friends that were always messing with them. So amongst that association, just started playing with the cars, and little by little, you know, it started building on what I've learned throughout the years.
And so you've always stayed with the E30, E36's platform?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it about those two that, you know, you never thought about actually moving up, newer, or, I mean, what is it about those two platforms?
Well, I mean, I think it comes within reason with your age group, I guess. You know, like I mentioned, the E36 and E30, you know, for me, the E36 was my dream car. That was the car I wanted to own. You know, I can imagine if it were someone a bit younger, then they would move into the E46s, you know, also a very nice car itself, but it wasn't, for me, the E30 and the E36 share really sharp lines, and for me, that's the epitome of what I've wanted in a BMW.
Interesting. So then this journey takes you to through the BMW world. Tell us a little bit about Motorsport Hardware. How did that come about? What is it? What kind of services you provide? And you being the founder.
Well, my background is in aerospace forgings, failure analysis. I've always been a fan of metallurgy and hardware. So when I was younger, in college years, I co-founded a wheel company, and you know, went through that. We had a couple years of a lot of success, and then the economy crashed, and I thought it was time to get back into the career world. And when I got into the career world, I got into metallurgy, failure analysis, and testing. So that's when I got to speak to a lot of metal nerds. You know, go to forging houses, talk about, you know, the science of metal, and it's super nerdy, but it's
It's awesome.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I can't get tired of it. So I figured I'd start creating a product that had a true quality system behind it, because, you know, that back then there were people who had wheels that were coming off their cars. Their hardware was breaking, or they didn't have a way to take care of them. So we figured that we were going to introduce a quality system. We were going to introduce our own metallurgy. We were going to introduce the way to take care of the products, and it's all the science of holding your wheels on and making sure that you're either, whether you have $5,000 wheels or if you have $500 wheels, we want to make sure that your wheels stay on, on a track day, on a drift track, or just street driving. It's simple, but at the same time we find it's one of the things that are easily overlooked.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and let's get started on your beautiful E30. All right, so tell us, what do we got going on in the front end?
Front end is just your classic look E30. The blacked out grills, yellow headlight film, and just a lip with an OEM lip below it. So we've deleted the fog lights. I've recently added an intake for the airbox that I just made, and being the quarantine time, I had a lot of
time, no excuses.
a lot of time to just fiddle with BS, so they just started thinking of random things. I repurposed those brake ducts so that there's true brake cooling. I guess the point of this car was to have more fun on track and to have more track time and eventually do some wheel-to-wheel stuff.
And you just raced it yesterday.
Yeah, I was just at Buttonwillow yesterday at a private event.
So you're definitely using it.
Yeah.
Cool. Tell us about your suspension pieces.
Suspension, we have a good relationship with Moton AST. So these are AST 5100s with ground control, top hats, and Swift springs. Okay. So they're a one-way adjustable shock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and AST, what I like about them is they actually do the welding. So they supplied me with the damper already welded to the spindle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Or the knuckle.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us about your braking.
Brakes, we've got a AP racing big brake kit that's offered by Essex through CA Tuned, and we're running their race pads and slotted rotors. We've got stock in the rear, and we're currently playing with different pad compounds so we can get the characteristics that we want out of the car.
Okay, beautiful. And your wheel and tire setup?
Wheel and tire, current wheels are Volk SC37Ks. Not made anymore, but my favorite wheels of all time. They're not as wide as I want. They're 7.5s, but they'll do. So I've always liked this wheel setup on the car, and I felt lucky to have found a set of Volks that were gonna fit on the E30 again. So I'm not gonna let go of these wheels.
And so, how about the rear? What do we have going on? For, I guess, the body.
Rear, the fenders are already. I actually took a hammer to them and a fender roller so that I can fit these tires on there. We're running 235s. On the rear setup, we just changed the rear diff ratio, just playing with the increased rolling diameter and how to capitalize on that and maintain acceleration. So we went with a 346 ratio, final diff ratio.
All right, so tell us, what do we have, if anything, in the interior?
Yeah, what we don't have is much. We don't have any door panels. Those are deletes. We have just, I guess, the important bits that are in the car. We have the roll bar. We also have a halo seat, a sub belt halo seat that will actually fits in the car. This car is pretty narrow. And like an old school Momo wheel, and we've got our center console deletes, and just trying to keep everything simple. We don't have a radio, but nowadays we have Bluetooth speakers in your phones. Other than that, we have our IRP chassis mounted shifter, and some racing harnesses, essentially.
Wow. Just the bare essentials.
Yeah.
What are the future plans for the interior?
Future plans for the interior is nothing.
Okay, good.
If anything, well, we probably could get the cluster to work. The RPM died, so we can probably do some little gears to fix that, or maybe just change the cluster out. But it's not the most important thing.
Alrighty, sir. What are we starting at?
All right, so we're looking at a S52 engine from a 96 and up E36 M3. Very, very nice engine to have in the car. It adds a lot of power that the E30s lacked, and surprisingly fits like it was meant to be in there from the factory. The original swaps actually worked with OEM mounts and all of that. Like I mentioned, in this time, the whole quarantine time here, I decided to build this airbox out of ABS plastic sheets that I had in the house, and a heat gun and a Dremel. So whether it actually is super effective or not, I think it may help with just providing cool air straight to the filter element itself. We have the Rally Road oil cooler with a Garagistic mount, CSF radiator. The work here done by JMP Auto Works out in Canoga Park. They're partners of Motorsport Hardware and our personal builds. Got 944 booster. We have the E32 master cylinder, and you can see the dampening for the shocks with the ground control camber plates and all that.
Is the actual motor stock? Everything internal? That you're aware of?
To my knowledge, the motor is stock. I think the only thing that I can see is that it's got a OBD1 intake manifold on it, and essentially that's it. With this car, we wanted to keep it simple, not overcomplicate things. Just to, if everything stays simple, doesn't get complicated, if something goes wrong, it's easy to diagnose.
And there's plenty of power for how light the car is. So
yeah, plenty of power. It's more than, I would say it's more than you need to be fast.
And what are some of the future plans?
Future plans depends on how crazy you want to get with things. I guess I have a habit of going against the grain. So you never know. In a couple years, it could just be the same motor, or there could be an S54 or even a K-swap. So
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, the reason behind the K-swap is when you do the swap of this motor, it actually upsets the front rear balance of the car. So the front becomes a little bit weight. The front is heavier than the rear, so that's why people that are actually fast in E30s, they ballast the car. They keep a full-size rear battery. They leave the stock back in there, and also the 40 pounds plus sound deadening they actually keep in the back, so that the car actually behaves more predictably on track. And this is the reason the E30 is actually known to have, the reason why you see them as drift cars is because the ass end likes to swing out a lot. So being that I'm a grip guy, having a high RPM, 300 horsepower, 4-cylinder, actually shifts the weight back, and the idea there would be to try and get back to a 50-50 weight distribution ratio. So, but it's all thought, it could change next week. So, or nothing can happen.
There you go. All right, Ryan. Well, thank you so much for sharing just all of this information from the E30 and the E36. Any shout-outs?
Shout-outs from, of course, Motorsport Hardware, my company. We enjoy working with all of our customers and creating relationships with them. JMP Auto Works, the guys over at Condor Speed Shop, Garagistic, CA Tuned, our Compound USA. They provide all our tires. And who am I missing out here? I think that's it for this car. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate it. To me, this is exactly what a driver's car looks like. Absolutely love it. It's raw. You mentioned you nailed it. It's for a driver. You know, you don't have none of those fancy sensors and comfort creatures, but that's, I guess, why you love this chassis. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. I can't wait for the best for motorsport and for your builds personally.
Right on.
Ready? Go for it. Holy sh**.